There is a kind of beauty to put on all these layers and costumes. It really adds a certain something. But honestly, a t-shirt and jeans would be lovely.
Edward doesn't understand the complex nature of modern politics. Look at him, he's an idealist. He wants me to be elected to Parliament so I can help run the business. He is concerned I might lose.
Edward, his name is Guinness and this is Dublin. Of course he won't lose.
You two are well matched in your certainty.
Yes, we are. Very well matched. And what you see at this breakfast table is a very rare thing. A marriage based on absolute honesty. Edward, you're too busy doing what you're good at. You two were born for different things. As the elder brother Arthur was born to inherit and enjoy the company of the rulers of the empire in London. As the younger brother, you were born to work and to earn.
Louis, welcome to Skip Intro and our New York studio, which I love. We brought Skip to Manhattan, and I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. You're LA, I'm London, so this is truly meeting in the middle.
Yeah, meeting in the middle, exactly. First of all, it's thrilling to meet you. I, like the rest of Instagram, discovered you in Enola Holmes, which I have to say is one of my favorite series. I loved it. And we have Enola Holmes 3 coming out, right?
Ooh, yes. Anything
Anything you can tell me about you and Millie, what happens with Millie Bobby Brown and you in this one?
Well, I think the first thing to mention would be that the director is Phil Barantini of Adolescence fame. So he's a guy from Liverpool who, over the last few years, has been making some brilliant things. Starting with Boiling Point was the first thing I saw, which was all one shot. And just fantastic performances, so rich and theatrical. And so to have him on board after Adolescence on Enola 3 was magical. And yeah, this is the third with Millie, and it feels like it's kind of, to me, I count it as one of the first things I did that really sort of denoted the start of my career.
Hello.
Please get out of this carriage.
I can't. I'm in hiding. Bit of a to-do. Bribed a porter to put me in this and get me on board. Very daring.
Get out of this carriage right now.
You're a strange-looking gentleman.
You think you look normal?
You're not a boy at all.
I might be a boy.
Who are you?
What are you?
I'm Viscount Tewkesbury, the Marquis of Basilweather.
You're an nincompoop.
I was 15 when I got the part, 16 when I did it. And I'm 22 now and have just wrapped it, and so it felt quite, 3 films over 6 or so years. It's quite special.
Yeah, definitely. And what I loved so much about the first one was the dynamic with the two of you, and also that it didn't end in like a kiss. It wasn't this. I love that.
Yeah, well, little fact, it was meant to.
Really?
It was meant to on that Through the Bars. There's a little scene right at the end, Through the Bars. But I think it was Millie's decision, Millie and the director. They were like, I don't know if this is the one. And so I said, yeah, well, I'm not gonna force you. And so it ended up being a little kiss on the hand, but there's something quite sweet and polite and reserved about that.
Yeah,
no. It really worked.
I think it really, really worked, and especially as like from the female lens. I love that it didn't. That wasn't. It was just more empowering, I think, for the characters, and also for Tewkesbury, one of the craziest named characters
I love
ever.
how Americans say it, Tewkesbury.
Oh wait, how are we supposed to say it?
Well, I would say Tewkesbury, but you say Berry, and like my girlfriend would say Glastonbury, which I find hilarious.
I say Glastonbury too.
And you guys Edinburgh. Instead of Edinburgh, but
how do you
we're
say
splitting hairs here.
Yeah. How do you say Glastonbury? How do you say it?
I'd say Glastonbury.
Glastonbury, and just go up north to Boston and forget about it. Everything takes on another bit. Okay, so we've got Enola Holmes 3. Then Pride and Prejudice is filming right now. So I just have to say, I think my Skip Intro listeners know this. I adore Jane Austen, and I adore this particular story of Pride and Prejudice. I've seen every version, including the black and white one with Laurence Olivier.
I didn't know there was a black and white
There
one.
is one, yeah. You can find it. But Wickham.
Yeah.
So tell me about being Wickham.
Oh gosh, I feel a bit intimidated sitting opposite you, who's clearly better researched than me. But I suppose Wickham would be he would be the baddie, or one of the antagonists of the story. Although obviously when you're playing that, you're not going to go around thinking you're a baddie. I don't suppose anyone really acts thinking that they're doing the wrong thing a lot of the time. And so I'm loving him. He's a bit of he's a cheeky fellow. He has a way with words. He's got the gift of the gab, and he's got all the charm, and it usually works.
Yeah.
Except on Elizabeth, she can sort of see through it, and it's a fantastic cast, and brilliant director, and Dolly Alderton, of course, who's adapted Jane Austen's work. It's just a really phenomenal group, and I'm happy to be amongst them.
So excited! The cast is top notch too. So
and it's another period piece for me. So I'm in this is the 1813, I believe it's set. Enola Holmes is about 1880, and Guinness, which is now out, is House of Guinness, is 1860. So
yeah, you're in that. That's your.
I can't escape. Yeah,
19th century is your jam right now,
be.
right?
The clothes are amazing, though. It's fascinating learning about all the clothes. I'm now quite up to date on, or I know quite a bit about what people wore and why. And for Pride and Prejudice, it's a lot more, rather than the later sort of stiff, quite sober, sincere, austere clothing. It's quite colourful. It's really influenced by the French. So there's a lot of ruffs and big baggy collars and sort of things. I guess you would call it a little ruffles hanging out from the neck. Quite a lot of loose clothing, and it's all a little bit freer. The French at the time would be really, really velvety and colourful and flowy, but the English sort of takes that and refines it a little bit, which I find really interesting.
Well, let's talk about Guinness.
Yes.
Great watch. I went all the way through. I had to parse it because otherwise I would have been up all night.
Yeah.
Fantastic series. Again, another amazing cast. In my days at Vanity Fair, I would see Daphne Guinness, here and there, and she'd come to some of our parties, and I had met her a few times. I love the way this series just takes you back to the beginning, right, and involves the whole English, Ireland, and I hope that we go all the way through. I've got very high hopes for this series because I think it's just brilliant. And you play Edward, so you're the kind of reasonable, seeming, level-headed, square, right? What would we call him? Bookish.
Maybe,
straight ahead.
The kind of guy that might report you to the teacher if you were misbehaving in the school classroom.
For you in discovering Edward, what did you learn most? And just talk to me about getting into playing Edward.
Well, I really enjoyed playing Edward because at first I saw really straight-laced, straightforward, really well-behaved, very sensible. I was thinking, okay, there's got to be a bit more. There's something here. And then he starts making these calls that are quite kind of impersonal and quite harsh.
Are you brave? Are you that brave? Are you that brave to have it all revealed? So do you want me to continue to walk the tightrope?
And you see a kind of, just a harshness to him and a lack of kind of emotionality and empathy, which I quite liked. He's very, very business-minded. And it's quite interesting to play someone that is just so strategic and ruled by logic and strategy that emotions are secondary, because I'm not like that at all. I think I'm quite empathetic and emotional, and I think I look to that rather than sort of planning and strategy. So it was amazing getting into the head of someone who might think like that. And there were discussions with the director as to whether he might be a tad neurodivergent, and we didn't put any labels on this at all. But I enjoyed having that at the back of my mind, that perhaps he's not fully evolved when it comes to sort of, he's not well evolved in the social sphere, and he lacks things because he's been thrust into this world of brewing and of taking over the father's job, because in 1860 I can't imagine there was much of an adolescence, a teenage period. It was like once you were 12 and you could lift up a brick or two, you were sent out to work and to earn some money. And so I think that was interesting as well, thinking that he hadn't quite explored himself, and we get to see a bit of that throughout the show as he meets a lovely lady and unravels a bit. But I enjoyed playing someone who's really, really smart and ambitious and intelligent, but perhaps has neglected a side of his life in the process.
The fictionalization of the historical drama, right? Like there's certain facts that obviously happen. It's
true.
Guinness. I can't wait to go to Ireland and go to the Guinness factory. Or you see it, you're just like, oh, and it's a beer that I drink, or is it American? I would say beer or lager. What's the right way to say it?
Yeah, beer or a stout, I think
stout.
Technically it would be, yeah.
Right. Love it. I can't drink those big pints though. For me, I'm like,
a baby one will do.
I'm like at 8 ounces. I'm good. It's like it's like a whole meal. But learning, following along with the historical facts, obviously, but all of the like kind of creative nonfiction around it, I enjoyed, and I love the way that they show how the women how to get power, right? Especially within aristocracy. Like there were limits on the women too. Like your sister, you can't. Things you just couldn't do, and the only way through was through marriage. Fascinating stuff, and I love the way all those dynamics play out. So there's 4 of you, right? And you are the second son?
I'm the youngest son, actually.
The youngest son. Oh, so okay.
There's Benjamin, my older brother, who's an alcoholic, a drunk, who just cannot be trusted with anything. And then my older brother, who spends all his time, this is Arthur Guinness, spends all his time in Portugal and other countries, and we realise has a secret that would bring the family to ruin if it were to get out. And so my job is very much keeping everything under wraps and trying to spin all these plates and run a company and grow it all while being about 20 years old.
Right. And then you have the sister. So is it the sister's in between right after?
I'm not sure. I think the sister, I think it would be Arthur, then Anne, who's the sister.
Right, then Anne. She's
Benjamin.
Brilliant actress.
She's fantastic. Yeah, Emily Fenn. She's Liverpudlian as well, from Liverpool. She's really excellent. I had a good time working with her. She would find a way in the rehearsal space just flesh out as much meaning as possible from even the smallest little lines, and find things to do, and just litter the performance with little clues, which I really liked. Nothing was sort of taken for granted. Right,
and the actress that plays Ellen is incredible as well. She's terrific. She's a discovery. Brilliant. I was like, oh, that's a new discovery. And I think her name, I don't even want to try to pronounce it because it's like Niah, but it's pronounced.
I'd love to do a little test. So that it's spelled Niamh, and just have a think how you would pronounce that, and then I'll tell you.
Oh, I know, actually. I'm going to cheat.
Go on.
Neve or Nev.
That's it. It's Neve.
Neve. Oh, I got it right.
Neve.
My producer's never going to believe that I actually got a name right, because I mispronounce names all the time. So what kind of surprised you about the Guinness family when you were getting in there? Did you do any research? Was it all in the script? Was it something like, oh my God, I had no idea?
Yeah, well, when I first found out I got the part, I went to the bookshop, my equivalent of Barnes and Nobles, and I bought 2 books. I bought one called Say Nothing, and I bought one called A Short History of Ireland. And Say Nothing, I realised, is about Northern Ireland in the 70s, the 1970s. Completely irrelevant, but fascinating. Really, really fascinating. And then The Short History of Ireland was like just covered so much ground that there was almost nothing relevant as well. But it was interesting in sort of learning about the socio-political climate and the Protestant-Catholic divide and all of the counties and sort of the relationships, because the Guinness family are Protestants. They're more English, I guess, than Irish, and there's a real class division there. But I can't say I learnt much from those books, but I was kind of referencing, you mentioned sort of creative license and fiction. Stephen Knight, the showrunner, the writer, I think from what I understand, he kind of gets an idea of what is going on, and then if he sees something he likes, he just runs with it and isn't too restrained by history or fact, to be honest, which I think lends a kind of fantastical quality. I mean, he doesn't stray too far, because these were real people, but he definitely makes a few assumptions, I think, and has a bit of fun with it. So I can't claim to be like this is a real historical source, because it's not. There is a fantastical element, a fun to it, a kind of, dare I say, campness to it at times, which is fun to lean into, to be honest.
And also the music is great.
Yeah.
The music plays such a huge part in setting the tone of it, and I think it just really works, and it's unexpected. So I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but it does. I love that kind of punk edge, because you realize they were punk, like what they were doing.
Yeah, right.
And like you said, the kind of political climate was so informed so many of the decisions that were made. Yeah, it's great.
If you like your Irish music, your Fontaines and your Kneecap, there's a fair amount of that in throughout the show, which kind of brings it into the 21st century, even though it's a period drama. I think it's quite important that they're not sort of stuffy and restrained. I mean, in their performances they can be, but it's quite nice to give it a bit of edge.
Yeah. All right. So 19th century. Where are we in the modern? You played Sid Vicious and Pistol with Danny Boyle. I mean, come on, amazing.
Oh, gosh.
But are you craving to do something in like the future? Do you want to be in a spacesuit and something on Mars? Like,
honestly, a t-shirt and jeans would be lovely. Now, I will say there is a kind of beauty to having to put on all these layers and costumes. It really adds a certain something for your posture, your poise, your kind of status. It gives you a clue, even if you're kind of unsure as to what to do with it. You can just stand and wear the clothes, and it gives you it kind of informs, even subconsciously, what you're doing, I think. And if you're doing an accent as well, like your mouth posture, it all feeds in. I think you can think a lot about this stuff, but I think a lot of it is quite instinctual when you're wearing like a waistcoat and 2 layers. You can't help but be kind of stiff and So I do enjoy wearing the clothes. I think they offer some insight into the time and the character. But yeah, it would be nice to wear something a bit comfortable.
Yeah, a little bit different.
About in a dressing gown.
Yeah, well, it's in House of Guinness too. You see it; they really use wardrobe in a way to differentiate the siblings. And at the heart of it, it's really a family drama, right?
Yeah.
You're all at odds at each other at one point or another, and 2 are aligned and 2 are not, or 3 are aligned and 1 is like But you can see it in the clothes too, and how different it is. So, and you do look very good in that. You do have that face that can carry off period. All right, I want to take you back to the very beginning because, as you said at the top, you're 22 years old. You already have a pretty big dossier of material that you've already done, and a lot of times. At your age, most people are just deciding that they want to be an actor, or it's coming to them. Yeah. What was that moment for you? Because I read about you. You were like, you went to school, you were a sporty kid, you played rugby. Is that true?
Yeah.
True? Yeah. You did all of that stuff. Like, what was it that spoke to you about wanting to be an actor? Yeah.
I've been thinking about this a lot recently for some reason. And I think if I'm tracing it back to anything, it would be the fact that I have 2 sisters. And for me, the sort of the supreme moment of connection and when I would feel happiest and most alive is when I was making them laugh. And so often it would transpire that I would kind of dress up and perform and I would just love to make them laugh. My older sister especially is quite, she can be quite cynical, and she's the kind of girl that can cut you down with 2 words kind of thing. And so to make Izzy, my sister, laugh was always like a yes. It would always make me feel great. And so I think I can trace it down to trace it back to showing off really to them. But while I was at school, I didn't do so much. Weirdly, I did 1 play when I was in grade 5, I think, for you guys, year 4, and I played Maid Marian in Robin Hood, a girl. I think I was the only fella that wanted to wear a wig and a dress. And again,
I assume this was an all-boys school?
This was, yes, you're right. This was an all-boys school, and I was about 10 years old. And I just remember people laughing. And I think it was my friend's mum that suggested that I try out for this theatre company that needed 150 kids. And so I said, I mean, why not? Me and my sister both. My mum took us to the audition because my older sister at that point was enjoying drama and all that. And I remember getting to the audition and just like seeing all these kids who were sort of musical theatre school just look confident. And I remember running out of the audition and sitting on a curb and crying. Yeah, and my mum saying, look, it's fine. We don't need to do this. You can just go out and just go in and try it. If you like it, great, you stay. If you don't, just come out after 10 minutes. And I said, no, I'm not going in. I'm not going in. I hate this. I don't want to do this. And then the lady, one of the casting directors, came out and bless her, I will name her. She was called Marion Dicker, and I haven't seen her since then. But honestly, she sat me down and just really reassured me and was really positive. I can't remember what it was that she said, but anyway, she ended up leading me by my hand into the room, and it was like something completely switched. I got it out of my system and I just loved it. I ended up getting a part, and even though I was an extra for about 6 months, I was just running around on stage, looking out at the audience with my sister, who also got the part. And I loved it. And ever since then, I got an agent, and I was in supporting artist. Sorry, I said extra. Supporting artist in various programs throughout the years while I was at school. And I just couldn't believe that I was getting paid to miss school and to sit in a room eating like crisps and things, and then get called to set for an hour's work where I'd run about in the background. I thought I had gamed the system. And so I did that for a while, and then kind of with varying levels of increasing significance, I landed Enola Holmes, which was sort of the biggest, I would call it the start of my career, as it were. Wow. Because it was a real part that felt like me, and it was a big old studio film with some big names, and
How was that casting? Do you remember the casting director? Do you remember that process where you brought in, and then did you have to audition with Millie? And
I did. I had to do a few self-tapes, and I did it with my mum, of course. And something about it, I think I just connected with the character, and I allowed myself to be kind of silly and have fun with it, which I hadn't really been doing. Honestly, I look back at some of those old self-tapes, and it is a testament. I think anybody can learn anything. If I can learn to be somewhat of a good actor, I think anybody can learn anything, because it is rather excruciating watching some of my early work. Yeah. I mean, I loved it, but God, I had not a clue what I was doing. Really quite bad. And I'll release them one day. I think it'll make people feel good if anyway.
Oh, the internet is screaming for them right now. Are you kidding? That's one thing that's so important to remember is like when the process of getting a role is just, it can be endless, right? You send in a self-tape, like you said with your mother, then you send in another one, then you meet with then you have to do a chemistry test, then you have to, and I don't know particularly with Enola if there was a line of...
there are a few boys waiting outside, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Another one who I knew. It's always tricky when you know somebody from something. But that was okay. I remember Millie was really, really very confident, as you can imagine. And the director, Harry Bradbeer, was in there. He was absolutely lovely. But a few minutes before, he caught me drying my underarms under a radiator, because I suffer from sweat patches. And so that broke the ice and some. And so I felt somewhat free. And there's this great, Millie often brings it up. I think while I was in the room, she wrote down on a piece of paper, "He's good," or something, and flashed it to the director. And so there was a certain kind of chemistry in the room for sure. And then, after that, I got the part, and I was doing my exams at the time, and I went straight from doing exams to the set. And it was, a bit of a whirlwind, and I was... it was nice having somebody else, Millie, who was, younger than me. I felt like I was somewhat supported, and I wasn't, surrounded by a load of adults. Yeah. I think you're kind of galvanized by a sort of infallibility when you're young, or at least I was. But I think if I had to go and do that now with no experience, I would think a bit more about it rather than just go for it. I feel similarly with the Sid Vicious part I did when I was 17, thinking I remember Danny Boyle at the read-through. I just hadn't a clue how to do the accent. And bear in mind, you're trying to recreate someone who is beloved by many, so you don't just wing it. And I was just doing some random Cockney accent. And he took me aside afterwards and said, I think we need to work on this. And the next day, carved out, we both came in 2 hours early to do an intensive dialect session while he just watched. And after that, I got it, but as in I got the accent, and it came to me in that 2 hours. But it never crossed my mind that I should be truly worried about this, which is madness. Yeah. Because anyway, but that's what I mean. I think you have a sort of a bravery when you're young that I'm grateful for.
I would definitely say try to hold on to that, because it'll only get more, the stakes only get higher and higher. And it is because you have... you feel like you've been shot out of a cannon. I mean, I know like the fame thing has got to be pretty intense for you. I'm curious, in New York, is anybody recognizing you walking around on the streets? And I know you have a very talented, famous girlfriend, but you also are very popular, and you have your own set of Louis fans. I mean, can you walk around in London or New York without getting...
I can do absolutely anything I would want to do without having to think about it, which is really, really, really nice. And I seem to have a really good level of that, where every now and again somebody will ask for a photo or say, I like this.
Yeah.
And that's really, really nice. But it's never been too much. Really, what did sort of take over my life a bit was the whole Instagram of it all.
Yeah.
Because Enola Holmes came out during lockdown, people were sat on their asses with nothing to do. And so I think just streamed it to ad absurdum. And I got about, millions of followers practically overnight. And that was just weird. With nothing else to do, I just found myself you could just spend hours looking at all these people and all these random people getting in touch to say, well done, hi, we should meet up. And that definitely kind of gave my brain a little reshuffle that I have managed to work out.
Good.
Sort of untangle, but I don't think that's helpful when you're trying to figure out who you are and what you want to do, to get that many eyes on you when it doesn't feel particularly earned in that way either. I think that can kind of put the cart before the horse in a way that is unhelpful to somebody who really wants to work and make mistakes really in order to learn and actually get better at the thing that makes them happy, rather than the applause and or the appearance of applause.
Yeah. All right, so I'm here for the New York Film Festival, and one of the films premiering at the New York Film Festival is Jay Kelly. Ooh. So I have to ask you about Jay Kelly, because you play the young Billy Crudup, right? So Billy Crudup is, and I'm going to give no spoilers because I don't want to get in trouble, but I love this film. And George Clooney is Jay Kelly, and it's so interesting because the relationship with Billy Crudup kind of sets the film in motion. And getting the young Billy Crudup and the young George Clooney right is essential for the film.
So. Yeah.
And that, to me, I mean, I know it's a small scene, but you are so good, and it feels like you and Billy are the same. Yeah. I thought that was a genius bit of casting, but also the essence of that. And then, when the film is played at film festivals where I've been before, in Telluride, where I got to see it, that whole sequence plays so well. And then when Billy has his thing, the audience goes crazy. So tell me a little bit about, did you get to meet Billy? Did you work on that? Did you look at his tape? How did you become him?
Yeah, so I should add that this is a film directed by Noah Baumbach, written by Noah and Emily Mortimer. And although I am a small part, Noah took such great care in kind of making this feel like a family. And he got me in with Charlie Rowe, the actor that's playing the young George Clooney, and got George Clooney and Billy Crudup in and just sat us down and made them get up and do monologues for us. The whole time I was thinking I was going to, it would turn and I'd have to go up and do one, so I was biting my nails, but it didn't happen. It was just an informal hangout, George giving, a load of sort of advice, I suppose. We're just sitting around in a big old room for a good few hours before we even talked about anything to do with work. And I know a lot of other people had a similar experience with Noah, and I think that's really wonderful to make you feel like you're a part of it, because that's really tricky. If anyone's an actor out there who's listening who comes in to do a day, I find if you're coming in for a day or 2 days to a set where you don't know people, it takes a while to get into a groove and to feel like you have the momentum to try something or to be loose and confident in a way that you really want to be. And so I do think that's a really hard part of the job. Anyway, Noah did a really good job of kind of breaking that down. And the first scene I do, George was watching, as was Adam Sandler, who's also in the film. Yeah. And that was a bit of a
not too much
scary
pressure
moment. Yeah, I know. It's rather,
Because it's one thing to do it and the director, but it's another thing to do it to have like that kind of murderer's row of talent watching you as well.
Yeah. No, they were very nice and complimentary. I think by that point you must be aware that just your presence, I think, is enough to cause people to kind of freeze up a little bit. Yeah. And so I think they were both very kind in that they were just a little word or two to kind of.
Yeah, I love Noah Baumbach, and I love his films,
Yeah.
and I imagine for a young actor that must have been pretty special.
So cool. He was on a list of directors I wrote down a while ago as to who I wanted to work with. I think I'd just seen The Squid and the Whale. I thought it was fantastic, and I wrote his name down along with a couple of others who I'm yet to work with. Denis Villeneuve, if you're out there. He was on there. And yeah, to work with him was brilliant. It's amazing.
It's so great. And then to be in that presence. All right, I always ask these questions of my guests, so I don't want you to think too much about it. It's just more kind of conversation. But birth order, and this is actually plays into Guinness, your project, which I kind of like, the natural tie-in. But I find that, and I think about myself, I'm the youngest. What about my birth order has informed how I am in the world? And I would ask you that question. You talked a little bit about, you have sisters. I don't know if they're both older, one younger, older, but how has birth order affected who you are in the world, Louis?
Oh, good question. I will be an armchair psychologist for a second and think about that. I have an older sister and a younger sister. I'm in the middle, and we're separated by about 1.5 years on either side. I think I was sheltered from the worst of the blows that the first sibling has to take on, and so maybe I had an easier ride. And my parents weren't so lax as they were with the third, my younger sister, so I think I'm quite well behaved. I don't know. I hear about middle child syndrome, and I think the idea is that you're overlooked as a middle child, but I can't say that's the case for me. If anything, it was kind of the opposite. As the only boy, who was probably the loudest and the maddest. Yeah, I don't know. I think I will say it's given having sisters. I've learned a lot from women in my life, and I really value having two wonderful sisters. And having been to an all-boys school, I realise other people aren't so fortunate. That's all I'll say.
But I do think there is something about when you are flanked by two sisters, it does really change the way you view the opposite sex in that sense, because it's, you've seen it on both sides, good and bad.
I think so.
All of it. Okay. So my other question is about JOMO, which is something that I just learned, that FOMO, that fear of missing out. What is the joy of missing out? What are one of the things that you just are so happy to miss or not have to do?
Karaoke. I'm always more than happy to watch someone else do it, but I would rather not do it myself. Joy of missing out. I'm quite ruthless when it comes to leaving a party. I think I would sooner go and risk having someone be a bit upset that I'd left than hang around and knowing the night isn't getting any better. So I'd take a lot of joy in leaving the party knowing that I'm going to get a good night's sleep.
We call that in America an Irish goodbye. Is that valid, or
yes,
what would you call that in
I've
Britain?
heard either French exit or Irish goodbye, but we'll go with Irish goodbye because it ties back into the Guinness of it all.
Yeah, we're all in it.
Yeah, I love an Irish goodbye.
Okay. Any irrational fears, like anything phobias that really...
I used to be really, really, cripplingly homesick as a kid, which is weird. Yeah, which is a little fact about me that ruled my life for many a year. I used to be incapable of sleeping over until I was about, 13. I wouldn't be able to be away from the house for a night from my mum, particularly my mum, which is interesting. But thankfully I got over that.
Did you have to go to boarding? Because you Brits go to boarding school mighty early. Yeah,
I considered it. I didn't want to. I mean, it might have suited my personality, but I don't think I was too homesick. It was something that friends of mine did, but I'm quite glad I didn't. I wonder if boarding schools are kind of a thing of yesteryear, or I don't know, or ought to be maybe. We'll see.
I mean, I'm a mother of 2 boys, so I can't imagine sending my kid to boarding school in 3rd grade.
I know
even though I know culturally it's done. I mean, I guess maybe at 13 or 14, but even then it would be super hard for me.
What are you missing out on in those years? I wonder. I'm sure there are success stories as well as the opposite, but I'm sure you want your babies nearby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. Mine are grown up. Oh my God, they're grown up. One's just 3 years younger than you.
Really?
So it's a reality that I am facing. That we call it here like empty nester. I have one that's 17, so he's in his last year of high school.
Yeah.
Not for long.
My goodness, yeah, that must be a funny. My mum's going through a similar thing, mum and dad at the moment, and they're still young. They have an appetite for the world and curiosity, and you kind of get a bit of your life back at that point. And I wonder whether they're going to kind of cling on to the fact their identity as parents, or whether they'll be like, right, let's go to Indonesia.
Let's take it. How has your mom, since she was so instrumental in getting you to act? How does she feel about all of this and your kind of success and?
That's a good question. I haven't asked her that in a while. I think she was really proud of me the other night. She came to the London premiere of the show of House of Guinness and was really proud of me, I think. But she's very much, she's very cautious, and she's not one to run away with fantasies of like being the world's biggest superstar or whatever. I think she literally just wants me to be happy, and I'm keenly aware, as she tells me, that it can all go away.
Yeah.
You know, this is quite a fickle old industry. So I think more than anything, she just wants me to be happy, which is great. That's what you want.
All right, my last question is about a memory. Is there any memory or moment in your life, whether it was like we would say like a fork in the road or something that you think about, like a particular instance in your young life where you were like, oh, I made that decision and that changed the course of everything, or maybe something less important, but a certain memory that...
I used to be really, really mischievous. I used to be really naughty, and I would always get... This was at the all-boys school. I used to get... You'd get 3 strikes and then a detention. And on Mondays, I would always get 2 strikes. And then I'd be like, okay, all right, we've got to be good now. We've got to be good for the rest of the week. And occasionally I would get a detention because I get another strike. But more often than not, I would be able to kind of pull it back and rein it in. I don't know what that was about. Maybe I was just sort of testing the boundaries, but I think it was a DT teacher that told me, like, you don't have to I can't even remember what he said, but he said something that's along the lines of, you don't have to be naughty. You don't have to do this. You're a good kid. You're polite. You're nice. And it was the weirdest thing. After that conversation, I never got a strike again, and I was head boy a few years later, even. So I completely went to the other side of things and was really diligent, and which was kind of funny. And I don't really know how significant that is or what that really means, but I remember. I think of 2 kind of quite different sides of me that, I vacillated from when I must have been about 10, 11.
Okay, so what gets you detention? Like when you say naughty, what would you do? What's
just
the level?
Just like dicking about in the classroom. Just like, just being unruly, I think. Probably trying to play up to like the machismo with the other boys and like enjoying a bit of that. I also remember it was around the same time that the teacher first swore that I had that kind of realization. It was like, oh wow, it's not necessarily cool to be bad and naughty and irreverent. Like there's a kind of respectability in being honest. A teacher, he swore. He was a rugby teacher, and we were going on to play, and he said shit. And I remember, like, that was a real whoa moment for me. Yeah. I was like, this is a human. This isn't just a man that's in here to make my life a misery. And all of a sudden, I started to really like this one teacher and stopped seeing him as kind of an oppressor and more as someone who I could work with. I hence became quite good at rugby till I got a load of concussions and Mum made me stop.
I know, rugby's brutal. I mean, we have obviously football in America, but we have helmets, and there's plenty of concussions in that.
I had a few MRI scans, and I don't think I ever played rugby again after that, which was devastating. It was kind of like a controlled space where you could be aggressive, and it was considered a tool. It was useful. But there was also a culture of respect. If you watch, you'll see these massive strapping lads who are really like deferring to this little fella who's running around with a whistle. It's kind of brilliant. But I always like that about rugby, that it would always come back to being respectful, but within the bounds of like 80 minutes you would really go at each other and shake hands afterwards.
Yeah, it's incredible. I watch Aussie Rules on occasion, and that you're just like, oh my
goodness,
this is such a level of athleticism. All right, New York. What else? What else you got planned? I know you're doing some press, obviously, for House of Guinness, but anything fun?
I did my first late night show last night, which I am still coming down from. I was rather nervous about it, but it went well. Split the G live on air.
You did. It was amazing. I was going to have a little Guinness this morning, and I thought, you know what? It might be a little early.
Yeah, I think you're right. I might have passed on it. But in terms of what I got planned, I don't know. It's very muggy here, so probably not too much in the way of exercise. You guys do have some of the best food in the world, so I might treat myself to some food. What's
your favorite food? What do you like over here?
Over here, I mean, you have literally everything under the sun. You have some of the best Italians I've ever eaten. Mm-hmm. But I just got back from Mexico, and I have since realised that I had not really had Mexican food before. So I'm hoping, maybe get a bit here. I've still got the taste.
It's really good in LA. I know that was one other thing. I know I promised my last question, but I grew up in Colorado, and I did we backpacked, we hiked, and all that because you do everything outside. And I saw that Seth Meyers, your late night, and you were fantastic. You didn't look nervous at all. But you talked about backpacking and Brazil, and I assume Mexico, that's where you were.
Yeah.
Talk to me just a little bit about that. Is it something that you did as a kid, or how? Because it's pretty
I suppose
unique.
In England, we're blessed with geography. You know, we've got all of Europe at our fingertips, and there's kind of a rite of passage. Once you finish school, aged 18, before college, you take a year out, you work for 6 months of the year, and then you travel for the other 6. I mean, that's not for everybody, but the people I was going to school with, that was a lot of people did that. And I've been working for all the way through school, so a lot of that time I spent with my friends in random places. And my job is such that I often have a month off in between shooting dates. And recently I went to Mexico, but on a show I did Disclaimer a while ago, I went to Thailand just on my own. And I find it's a really great way to completely humble oneself, kind of reset, be somewhere where you are completely free to reinvent yourself if you would like, but also you're completely unknown and everything is unfamiliar to you, and you don't really speak the language. I find it does a lot for you, and you find a lot out about yourself and about other people, and often meet some people that you would never, ever otherwise have met. But I really like having everything in a bag and seeing a bit of a country, and then you meet people from that country and you can have conversations about it, and occasionally you meet people that you met. I was in New York a few times ago. I was in New York, and I was having a little meeting with a casting director in Union Square, just a coffee shop in Union Square, and I really recognised this fella sitting next to me, and I just could not place him. And then afterwards, after the lady has left, he said, I didn't want to interrupt, but we went on a 4-day hike through the jungle in Colombia 2 years ago. And we did, and I've forgotten. And I was like, oh my goodness, you're the fella who picked up the pig. So I have a video on my phone of him lifting up a little pig while it goes... And I spent 4 days with this guy and his girlfriend, it's so random in a massive city like this. I mean, we didn't have much of a conversation, but it was good to know that he was still out there doing his thing. And
it's amazing. So do you go alone when you do it, or do you go with a mate?
I went to Thailand alone, but Mexico I went with a mate, and Brazil I went with a mate.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's good to do. It's really special.
I love that. I feel like, you know how Ewan McGregor does those long way ups and long way down? I don't know.
Is that on a motorbike that he does that?
Yeah, he does it on a motorbike, but there's something...
Cool.
There's something here for you maybe down the road. Well, it's so great to meet you, and thank you so much for hanging out with me in New York and making me bring, Skip Intro here. You
don't usually do it here, do you?
No, I'm based in LA.
Oh, wow. Goodness. Well, thank you so much for coming over.
Yeah. No, it's great to meet you, and I have high expectations, so I'm excited to see what you do next. I'm excited for Pride and Prejudice, and I'm excited for everyone to see House of Guinness.
Thank you.
But it's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, I hope we get to do this again. Cheers. Thanks for listening.